I can't thank you enough for the very kind introduction and for welcoming me here to Omaha. It's great to be here with you today. As the leader of a new organization, looking at you is truly inspiring because I know that this organization didn't start itself. It took hard work and perseverance and a belief that coming together as a community, you could do more than you could do individually. And I want to take a moment to recognize that and to thank Willie for your leadership. At the Obama Foundation, we truly do believe that without leadership, nothing is possible. And that is clear here. And I know you didn't do it alone. I know there are people who have been on that journey with you, but that journey has led to the results that we don't only see in this room, but we also see in this community. So please join me in giving a round of applause to Willie and to the community that started this. I'm excited to be here to simply celebrate and to tell you how truly proud we in the Obama Foundation are to be your partners in this great work. We haven't been here since the beginning, but we plan to be here with you all the way through going forward because we know that America is only as strong as communities like Omaha, and you're making Omaha stronger. As Willie mentioned, I'm the new president of the Obama Foundation, so I can take very little credit for the work that the foundation has done with you to date. The My Brother's Keeper Alliance provided a modest investment in Step Up Omaha, which is a great program, and it is clear that you've taken that small investment and you've turned that into, with your gifted team, into a beautiful program that is already helping hundreds of students find opportunity within the community. And I want to also thank Brunel and the excellent team of people who have been working on this with you, simply because like any organization, the Obama Foundation is only as strong as the people who work there. And I've been lucky enough to inherit a talented group of people who are committed to working in communities a lot like this one. As Willie mentioned, I am new to my job. I actually just moved to Chicago 6 weeks ago. And next week in Chicago, we'll be hosting our annual summit, which is when we gather with our leaders from around the world that we are working with, and President Obama and Mrs. Obama get together to talk about our vision for place. So a number of my colleagues and my staff asked why days before this gathering I would be going to Omaha. And to be frank, last night at 11 p.m., when I was sitting in the airport with my flight delayed, I asked myself the same question. But I'm here today because of a deeply held belief that changing this country and changing this world starts with changing our communities. And I knew that by coming here, I would collect inspiration that would take me and empower me as we go into an important work week there in Chicago, and I've already gotten that this morning. Sitting in on a session on diversity, equity, and inclusion, not only hearing about the stories that mattered here in Omaha, but thinking about how those stories apply to the organization that I'm running and to the various organizations we influenced, already provided me with knowledge that I'll take back as I go back to Chicago to lead this organization. But the work that you do is evident not only in this room, but when I look at the statistics that have come out of the work you do, it's quite impressive. For example, you've doubled the number of Black-owned businesses since 2007. That deserves a round of applause. But this also deserves a round of applause. You've reduced gun violence by 70% in your community. And in a country where people say that nothing is getting done, you've also had the ability to influence 20 pieces of important legislation and ordinances getting passed that are aligned with your empowerment and transformation plan. So these are accomplishments that are happening here in this community that are example not only to the young people in Omaha, but an example to people not only in the state of Nebraska, not only to people in America, but an example of what we can do when we have great leaders who are working together towards a common cause. And that's exactly what I find here today as I come to Omaha. So I am so proud and so excited to be here with you to talk a little bit about the foundation, but also about the journey we can take together as we think about the economic development of our community going forward. Long before becoming president of the United States, Barack Obama served as a community organizer on the south side of Chicago, as many of you already know. He was inspired to do so by the example of an ex-convict who said that we are bound together by a common humanity and that each individual has inherent dignity and worth. Nelson Mandela's belief in the power of communities to impact change inspired a young Barack Obama to become a community organizer. As president, he often pointed to the fact that he learned as much from conversations with laid-off steelworkers or single moms in a poor neighborhood within the south side of Chicago as from leading economists. It was his belief in the power of community and organizing that has carried over into the mission of the Obama Foundation. President Obama has always been committed to building a nation that believes in opportunity for all. And that's exactly what My Brother's Keeper is focused on. Rooted in the unique challenges facing boys and young men of color, it was inspired by the tragic killing of Trayvon Martin. A few months later, in February of 2014, President Obama launched the My Brother's Keeper initiative to address persistent opportunity gaps faced by boys and young men of color and to ensure all young people can reach their full potential. And it's clear today that the work that you are doing here in Omaha is a huge part of making sure that that vision is actually a reality here in your community. Since becoming an initiative of the Obama Foundation, My Brother's Keeper has continued to lead a national call to action to build safe and supportive communities where boys and young men of color are valued and have clear pathways to opportunity, allowing them to become change makers within their communities. At the Foundation, we seek to empower the next generation of change makers and organizations focused on change because we believe that leadership is critical to addressing the most pressing challenges humanity faces. As President Obama has written, people don't go hungry because we don't know how to grow food. Schools don't fail because we don't know how to provide quality education. Solving these problems requires leaders that are capable of calling us to our better angels. The type of leadership that is central to the change you are making happen right here in Omaha. So I'm here in Omaha because I think that by celebrating what you do in Omaha, we can call the attention of our country and our communities throughout the country to the fact that when we work together, we can build great things like the Empowerment Network. So I appreciate you taking the time to host me here, to demonstrate to me and to others how a community working together can actually lift up not only parts of the community, but the entire community. And I personally come to this work with a deep and abiding knowledge of the power that leadership has to shape what is possible. The desire to instill the value of service in me led my father to wake up merely up on the morning of February 11th, 1990, to watch Nelson Mandela as he was released from prison. Although the images on my television were of reality thousands of miles from my home in California, I could feel the hope Mandela inspired not only in South Africans, but also in my father. It was the same sense of hope that I felt watching a young state senator that looked like me declare to adoration that his story is part of the larger American story at the Democratic Convention in 2004. I, like so many young people, followed President Obama into public service, looking to positively change my community and country. And for the majority of my career, I focused on trying to address issues of economic opportunity. My time in government and the private sector have affirmed for me that today we have the resources in this country to end poverty, to address economic inequality, and provide an opportunity for every human being on this planet. We do not lack solutions to these problems. What we lack, what you recognize that we need, is leadership that is committed to meaningfully addressing these challenges. I joined the foundation in order to help build an organization committed to inspiring, empowering, and connecting change makers that can help solve these challenges. We're focused on inspiring leaders that will bring us together rather than tear us apart. We're focused on empowering leaders that will build up our communities. We're focused on connecting leaders that will solve our most vexing challenges as a society. These are the type of leaders that President Obama says can channel a people's will into progress that benefits everyone. And as you know well here in Omaha, our economy cannot be strong if it does not benefit everyone. Today, we're in the midst of the longest recovery in American history, a recovery that I remind people started under President Barack Obama. That definitely deserves a round of applause. As you know, our national memory is shorter than it should be, but it's important to remember that it was President Obama's administration that broke the back of the Great Recession, saved the American auto industry, and put us on a path of sustainable growth that we continue to enjoy today. But we all recognize that more needs to be done to ensure the benefits of economic growth are reaching people of color throughout this country. This is why I'm so encouraged by the work you're doing here in the Empowerment Network. Progress that benefits everyone, not just the people in one community, but everyone here in Omaha. We need more of this in our country. In the face of economic headwinds, we need to work towards building a more resilient and forward-looking approach to economic development in our communities, especially communities of color. For too long, people of color have been the first to feel the impact of economic downturns and the last to see the benefits of a recovery. Focusing on being early adopters and seeking to accept change is, in my opinion, the best way to build resilience within our communities. This approach requires us to look past the next recession and start to focus on how we can build the skills and infrastructure within our communities to be ready for fundamental changes to the nature of work driven by technology. This means ensuring that our children have access to STEM education, technical training, and the soft skills that are required to get and keep jobs. I'm encouraged by the fact that these are issues the Empowerment Network is already focused on. At the morning session, the first that I attended, the first question that was asked, I think, was an important one about not only how we create jobs for people of color and for African Americans, but how do we ensure that we also take on leadership roles in these organizations? Because fundamentally, that's where decisions are made. We need to ensure that members of our community are in the leadership roles in these organizations because they are making determinations not only about where the jobs of today go, but what are the jobs of tomorrow. Ultimately, many of those jobs are going to be service-oriented, professional service jobs, and we need to make sure that the people who are making decisions about those jobs recognize the importance of being inclusive and giving access to those positions to people of color. Prior to working at the foundation, I worked in asset management, where a great deal of the wealth in this country is managed by the very few, and it is not very diverse. And the goal has to be that at the top echelons of finance and professional services, we look more like, we ensure that the people who are helping to manage our money and give advice look more like the country that they represent. So I'm excited about the work that the Empowerment Network is doing to do that in this community. It's work that we at the Obama Foundation look forward to helping you lift up to demonstrate the progress that can be made, not only in Omaha, but the progress that can be made throughout the country. Oftentimes when I talk to President Obama, he shares incredible stories from around the world about how sharp and astute and tolerant and thoughtful and entrepreneurial people are. He's very hopeful about the world despite the darkness that we see. And what I can tell him when I see him next week is that here in Omaha, I am among the world-class change maker he brags about as well. So I thank you for allowing me to come here to Omaha and take a bit of the inspiration I've gathered here to share with the president and with everyone else that I will see next week at our summit. And with that, I look forward to a conversation with you, Willie, and talking to you about the economy.
I just wanted to take a few minutes and dig deeper and talk about some of the key things that we're seeing now here in Omaha. But before we do that, anytime we've had a chance to meet someone that has worked directly with the president, you said he was an inspiration back in 2004. Can you speak about that experience working directly as a senior advisor to President Obama? What was that like working with him there in the White House?
I think the thing that was most impressive about President Obama, and you see the pieces of him that are the world-class orator and the person who's able to inspire people, but the thing that for me was the most impressive was his ability to make the hard decision, despite the fact that there was going to be pain associated with it. And the decision that what he wanted to do was explain to people, instead of saying, how do I get around the politics of this or delay the decision, he wanted to both make the decision and then decide how he was going to communicate to the American people how this decision ultimately would be in their benefit. I think that is something, as a young leader, you often fail to realize that making the tough decision is only the first part of it. The second part is how do you do what I'm dealing with now, which is change management. How do you ensure that people follow you along the line to recognize that while the pain may hurt now, and you look at things that we had to do, especially during the financial crisis, there were no easy decisions there that went to the president. But he was always willing to make the right decision, even if it was a hard decision politically for him, because he knew that it was in the best interest of the country overall.
Just building on that, so you've been brought in 6 weeks on the job in Chicago, and you are responsible for the Obama Center, from what I understand. A huge legacy to the first African-American president. Speak about that responsibility as a leader and how you feel about that.
I think the Obama Center, the one thing that he's been very clear about is he doesn't want some kind of monolith just to himself. And that's partially why he decided that he wanted to build the Obama Center in the south side of Chicago, the community where he got his start. And the way he thinks about it is this is a way for us to invest more money in the south side of Chicago than has been invested in over 100 years. And I want this to be the center of economic development for that community. So in order to do that, we have to ensure that it is something that we're doing with the community, not to the community. And that takes hard work. And it includes working both with community groups and local leaders to ensure that the center is both a place to celebrate the history of the first black president, but also a living center where the community is brought in and we're using it for programming, and that we're also drawing in other businesses into the area. And to get to the workforce development piece, I think one of the things we're very focused on at the moment is ensuring that as we build, we want to make sure we do so with a diverse workforce in order to set a standard for the type of building that we hope will go on in the South Side in the future. It's one thing to invest a bunch of money in a place, but if you're bringing people from another community in to build it, you're not getting the full benefits of that. So we're very focused on the idea of this not only being a center that celebrates the presidency of Barack Obama, but also transforms the south side of Chicago.
And we're in the midst of that right now. We worked for 10 years collectively with many people in the room to get people interested in redeveloping North Omaha. And now, as you saw this morning, focusing on diversity and inclusion and tangible strategies. Maybe touch base on a few things that you're doing intentionally through the Obama Foundation to make sure that occurs, that the people in the community benefit through this development that's happening.
So I think the first thing you do is accountability matters. So we've set very high targets for ourselves in terms of what we're going to accomplish in terms of workforce diversity for the building of the Obama Center. I think that's good because it helps also set the bar for other buildings that are going to come adjacent to the center to know that that's something they're going to have to do. In addition to that, I think one of the things that we focused on is on and this is nuts and bolts, but thinking through contracting. And the contracting process matters a great deal. And ensuring that you're creating contracting opportunities that aren't only available to the largest firms, because traditionally those firms are not going to be as diverse, but ensuring that either you build in opportunities for subcontracting or you're breaking up your contracting in ways that give opportunities to firms to compete that are smaller is critical for big projects.
Good. I do want to come back to also, I think Shelly Henderson is here, the MBK of the Heartland leader, as well as Earl Redrick from HUD and Chris Rogers, as well as Deb Neary. They are the team that worked with us to establish this partnership with the Obama Foundation. If they're here, and I know they are somewhere, if they would stand for a moment, let's recognize Shelly Henderson, Earl, Chris Rogers, and Deb Neary. I want to thank them for their leadership. So one of the things we're doing, you talked about the step-up investment, workforce development, making sure that our high school students, college students have opportunities in the workforce. But can you talk about what you would love to see between that MBK partnership and where can we go with the Empowerment Network, MBK, and the Obama Foundation?
So I want to celebrate what we've already done in terms of the fact that you set up a program that not only provides young people with an avenue for doing something other than doing nothing, but something that actually is leading towards them becoming economically independent. I think there's more that we can do there in terms of helping to provide them with a lot of what people would call the soft skills that are going to be necessary for the workforce. I think one of the challenges that we continue to see is that it's not just providing people with the technical skills, and those are important and they have to be the basics, but you also need to provide them with the other skills that are necessary to both be active participants in the workforce and advance their careers, but also participants in their community, because those two things are related. So I think there's more we can do there in terms of partnership with MBK and the Empowerment Network. But in addition to that, I think one of the things we want to look to do is to shine a light on the great work you've already done here. Because my view is that the thing we are trying to do is we want to change the country, we want to change the world, and we think that actually does start in communities like this one. And the great work you're already doing can be an inspiration to communities like Stockton, California, or communities all over this country. And I think there's a great deal we can learn from the network effect as well, because not all good ideas exist in one community. So part of our goal is to create a true network of groups like your own that are trying to make a difference in the community in order to make sure we're sharing the best examples of what's happening.
Thank you. First of all, this is a celebration of the people in this room, and just want to celebrate yourself, the work that you're doing, all of these community partners, businesses, the work. We all know there's a lot more ahead of us, but to have that recognition from the global foundation of the Obama Foundation to come in and look at what you're doing. And so you heard this morning that a part of where we are right now is how do we build wealth in the community and create a thriving economy. With your background on a global level and working in wealth management, you mentioned that you were here before working with Berkshire and others, so you have that knowledge. From your experience, how do we truly create an economy where African Americans and other groups can really, truly thrive?
And I think and I touched on it in my remarks, I do think that it involves becoming the leader, moving into leadership positions in some of these bigger companies, even if they're regional companies, and also thinking about what we're doing with our finances. Ultimately, all of us in some way, you have a 401k, you have retirement income, you have something that you are saving for, and the more we think about the diversity of the people who are helping us manage our money and the people who are providing us with professional services, the more we're going to be able to build wealth within our communities. And I think that it's a place we often don't focus enough because we're focused on the day-to-day of creating jobs, which I think is critically important, but I think that we also need to be focused on what it means to create wealth. And creating wealth means both learning about how to save your money, but who are you providing that money that you're saving to invest, and what are they investing in on the back end is a critical question we have to be asking ourselves in order to make sure that in our community we're actually taking the money, the hard-earned money that we have, and using it to create wealth in our communities and not in other communities.
That's good. We mentioned this morning, and maybe I'll have them do it again, we were really intentional. Usually it's after the conference where someone would say, I wish we had more youth here. So this year, working with Ricky and others, we really focus on making sure that we have high school students and college students here. If you don't mind, can we have all of our high school students and college students please stand at this time and be recognized? I want to thank OPS, MCC, Creighton University, and UNO for working with Ricky to bring them here, and our Step Up Omaha program, Monique, and others. So you have about 70 youth here. What would you say to them about leadership that they can take back to them in high school and college and use at this time?
So I'll say to them what I've discovered to be true for myself is that sitting in this room are your mentors, and your goal has got to be to walk out of this room connected with the people who are going to help you develop your careers and your lives. One of the things that I've benefited greatly from is the idea that people have poured into me, especially people who have looked like me and taken the time to ensure that I've planned my career. So I know that it's hard to do, but have those conversations, because ultimately none of us are going to do this walk alone, and these people in this room are committed to you in a special way, and take advantage of that. And I want to thank those of you, because the critical path to success for young people of color involves seeing examples of people who look like them doing things that they may not have thought were possible. And each one of you in the work that you do, both with the Empowerment Network, but in the community, is doing that every day. And it's something that people like me growing up appreciated, and I know that these young people also appreciate. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Last piece, you have 500 plus leaders from every sector, every generation. Through your remarks, you mentioned some of the things that are happening here and what's going on a global level, some of the challenges and opportunities. But anything that you would leave us with this collaboration, many have been working together for over 13 years. what is your parting message to Omaha at this very time, in this critical time in our history?
Change is going to happen here in Omaha first, and you've already started that, and that ultimately, even at the beginning of our country, it was a country that was started by small communities coming together to decide that they wanted to knit themselves together. And despite the noise and I think the darkness we see when we turn on our TV or we look to what's happening in the world, ultimately changing that is going to be driven by our communities and by leaders like you. So I simply wanted to come here to celebrate that and to tell you that we are watching and we're going to make sure the world knows what you are doing, because it is an inspiration not only to the people in this room, but an inspiration to all of us. And keep doing that work, and we're going to be your partners in doing it from now until forever. So thank you for that, and we look forward to partnering with you.
Thank you. Omaha, Adewale Adeyemo. Thank you. Thank you. Again, we want to thank the Obama Foundation. Come on, Omaha, let's celebrate the partnership that we have with them. Burnell. We look forward to expanding